Hi guys, it's Miss Meyer with another episode of the Miss Meyer Show. So today we're going to talk about continuing on with Chapter 7. So we have gone through, and if you don't have your textbook, guys, you need it. If you do not have your textbook, you're going to have to contact K-12 support, and they're going to have to send you another one. I don't know if they're going to make you pay for it, but you need a textbook. And I apologize for my hair. It's crazy today, but it always is. So what's the big deal? Okay. So when we were in class last, this is where I'm leaving off on page 156. When we were in class last time on Monday, before all of the craziness was going on with my technology, we talked about Aaron Burr, the Vice President of the United States. Now, Aaron Burr, remember, he went and he killed Alexander Hamilton. He shot him. He was killed. So Thomas Jefferson said, I'm not dealing with you anymore. Get out of here. You're not going to be my vice president the next go round. So now Aaron Burr went around and tried to form his own country. He tried to get people to come and attack parts of the United States so that he could carve out a little piece of land for himself in his own country. Well, eventually he did get caught. He was arrested, but he was found not guilty, which is insanity to me. But he was ruined. Nobody wanted to deal with him. He was totally ostracized. He was like an outcast, like a complete outcast. So he basically left the United States. He came back after a while, but he left for a really, really long time. And that's the end of Aaron Burr. He was totally scandalized. The next rebellion that we're going to talk about is the West Florida Rebellion. Now, Spain owned part of Florida. When we sold, well, let me go back even further. When Spain gave France back the Louisiana part of the Louisiana Purchase, they maintained a little spot, kind of like the panhandle area of Florida. Well, when America bought the Louisiana Purchase from France, Spain still maintained that area. So Americans, though, there was all these people coming over to America and wanted to be an American now. All these people. So they needed places like to live and stuff. So one of the places that they were going was Florida, this West Florida Panhandle. And even though they were ruled by Spain, was still allowing them to kind of do their own things, giving them land grants, helping them out, kind of things like that. Well, eventually Spain started to put sanctions on these people. They were not allowing them to vote. They were not allowing them to participate in government. And the people here were saying, hey, we're all Americans, right? We're still Americans. We should have a right in what goes on here. And Spain is saying, you're not in America. This is Spain. Well, the Americans got really, really angry about it. And they decided that they were going to come up with a plan. They were going to come up with like a charter and say their grievances to Spain, kind of like what they did to England in the American Revolution. Well, at first, the Spanish commander, the guy in charge, he appeared to agree. He was like, oh yeah, it looks like a great plan, and we're all going to work together. We'll all be good friends. Oh, it's going to be fabulous. It's going to be totally fabulous. But behind the scenes, he was rallying his troops together. He secretly sent to Pensacola, Florida, for Spanish reinforcements, for soldiers to come and ambush these people and crush this crusade or this rebellion or whatever you want to call it. Well, after discovering the commandant's plan, West Floridians, they gathered their troops and they said, you're not going to mess with us. You want to come and play this game? We're going to beat you before you can come get us. And General Philomene Thomas, which is just a fabulous name. I just love the name, Philomene. Awesome. So Phil and his men, he got about 75 militiamen, and they went and attacked a Spanish fort right around the Baton Rouge area of Louisiana, because that's where they were. So during this whole attack, the American militia killed 2 Spanish soldiers and wounded several others. And the rest of the Spanish garrison at Baton Rouge surrendered. So after seeing this, the Spanish said, okay, we are not going to incite a war with the United States, because these people, even though they were living in Spain, they were Americans. Now, Spain knew that they had no chance of fighting a war against America. It wasn't going to happen. America was still a baby country, but Spain was even worse. Okay? Out of the three Mamma Jamma countries that before America was established, England, France, and Spain was always the lowest on the totem pole. So Spain knew that they could not fight and win a war against the United States. So when these Americans were, having these issues and fighting the Spanish, they were really scared that Thomas Jefferson was going to say, well, we're going to go to war with Spain. And they knew they could not win a war with them. So what they did is they declared the settlers of West Florida independent, and they were called the Republic of West Florida. So before Texas was its own country, Florida was its own country, and they were the first Lone Star Republic. Texas is like the Lone Star State, but Florida was the first one. Now, they ratified a constitution. They named St. Francisville the capital of their country, and they elected this guy. Listen to his name. He's got a rockin' name too. Fulwar Skipwith. I'm like, who names these kids? That's phenomenal, man. Okay? They elected this guy their governor and their leader. Now, the whole country, the Republic of West Florida, it only lasted about 10 weeks. It was a very, very short-lived country. The majority of people that were living there, they wanted to be part of the United States. Same reason that Texas. When Texas became its own country after the Battle of San Jacinto, and I live in Texas. I taught Texas history, that's why I know what I'm talking about. Plus, I'm just totally awesome like that, and I know all these histories. Well, anyways, after Texas became its own independent country from Mexico, people that lived in Texas, the Texans or the Texians, either way, they were called both, really wanted to be part of the United States, because being part of the United States meant that they would have some form of protection. You had the big United States to help you. When you were your own little baby country, like the Republic of Florida or the Republic of Texas, you had to defend your own country. So if one of these big countries were coming to attack you, you didn't have the benefit and the backbone of the American army. So a lot of people who were living in Florida, and same thing goes for Texas, who were living in Texas, said, we want to be part of the United States. So the residents of West Florida, they called up James Madison because Thomas Jefferson's no longer president. Called up James Madison. He said, yo, James. Maybe not like that. They were probably like, hello, Mr. Madison. But they wrote it because nobody was calling at that time. They just weren't. But anyway, so they called up Madison and they said, hey, please take West Texas. Let us please be part of the United States. Well, Madison acted really before he even received the message. He didn't even get the message from the people yet. And he said, okay, I'm going to get these people to come in and part of the United States. Because Madison knew that he was having trouble with the British at this point in time. He was having lots of issues with the British. The War of 1812 is about to break out. So Madison says, I don't need to have problems with Spain. I don't need to be having problems with these people living in Florida, this new country. So let's all just join together, and because I foresee problems coming with Great Britain. And there were big problems. We're going to talk about that next. So he quickly issued a presidential proclamation, kind of like an executive order. What we hear about today. I mean, I know we talk a lot about politics in this class because I love it and it's so important. But a presidential and executive order is an order given by the president, basically by-stepping a lot of the other steps, cutting through a lot of red tape. So Madison gives this executive order, what he calls it, the presidential proclamation, and it declares West Florida as part of the territory of Orleans, kind of part of Louisiana. So that gave us, as you can see here in your book, do you see, this is what it looked like before, okay, West Florida became part of Louisiana. When West Florida became part of Louisiana, we got this little part right here. This little part. Right there, my pen. I thought I had a pen up here. I just have a highlighter. This part. Don't write in your books like I write in mine. But because I'm the teacher. That's why I became a teacher, guys, to write in my textbooks. Okay, so now Louisiana kind of gets the shape of what we know of today. And Madison, President Madison, he calls up Claiborne. Remember, Claiborne's still here. He's still in Louisiana because Louisiana people are still not ready to rule themselves. You still have a lot of problems going on. Not as bad as it was before. There's not as many fights around the people like there were before, but there's still issues. And Claiborne still can't leave, which tells you how it was still going in Louisiana. So he calls up Claiborne and he says, hey, I need you to take control of this land too. Claiborne's like, dude, I can barely handle the people you've got here now. You're going to give me a whole bunch of other people to deal with? And he's like, oh, don't worry about them. These are Americans. They're not going to be as, crazy as those other people living in Louisiana. So Claiborne was kind of like, okay, because he had his hands full. You know us, from the people from Louisiana, you know how we roll. So we were giving Claiborne a run for his money. So when he was finding out that these were just Americans, he was a little appeased. Well, Spain didn't like this action. They didn't like that Florida was becoming part of America. They didn't want America to get even stronger. They were already afraid of us. But they knew they could not fight America, so they just kind of let it happen. Okay, the slave rebellion at St. John the Baptist Parish. Remember, once Claiborne took over and we became part of the United States, we were first territories, but then we became parishes. So the largest slave rebellion in our nation's history ever. It occurred when a black man named Charles Deslons, is a French name, and a slave named Jupiter formed a slave rebellion in St. John the Baptist Parish. Now remember, guys, there were not all, I guess African Americans at that time were not slaves that lived in Louisiana. There were free people of color, it's what they called them. Now the first guy, Charles Deslons, he was a freeman. He was not a slave. And a slave named Jupiter. So one man that was a freedman and one slave. Now, about 500 slaves joined the rebellion and marched towards New Orleans, looting and burning plantations along the way. In all actuality, the people of New Orleans probably saw nothing big. They were probably like, whoa, let's be a parade, woohoo! Because that's the kind of atmosphere that was in New Orleans at the time. But this caused a lot of panic in New Orleans. It caused a lot of panic with the ruling Creole class. When Louisiana became part of the United States, remember, Claiborne tried to make peace with them. He wanted them to like him. He knew very, very well what could happen. Remember that huge rebellion? Claiborne, they knew what was going to happen. O'Reilly, the way O'Reilly had taken over. Look what they did to Ula. So when Claiborne took over, he put a lot of people in Louisiana in charge. Well, the people that he put in charge were not, farmers and, just your basic regular people. He put rich Creoles in charge. Like, if you ever watch The Princess and the Frog, which I have to watch at least once a day, because Vivian says, Tiana! And Tiana's my homegirl, so I always turn that on. I'm like, yeah, if you're gonna like a princess, you're gonna like Tiana. So, you ever watch The Princess and the Frog? Like Big Daddy LaBeouf, Charlotte's dad, he's got that big mansion. He's like a Creole king. And even the song in the beginning, I think it says, stately homes and mansions of the sugar barons and the cotton kings. That's him. Okay? So these Creole people see this rebellion coming around. They see all these 500 people with clubs and weapons and fire, and they're burning all these plantations to the ground. And they're like, oh my gosh, they're going to come after me next, because they're fearful. So this is a problem. This is a real problem that America is going to have to really step in and do something. These people are scared. They're going to Claiborne. They're going to the General Wade Hampton, which, if you guys ever read Gone with the Wind, which I truly encourage you to do, Wade Hampton is a real person. And he's in Gone with the Wind, actually, but we'll get to that later. But if you ever read Gone with the Wind, just let me know. You might get extra points. Probably not, but still, it's a good book. Well, anyways, so Wade Hampton, who was the general at this time, is the one in charge. So all these people, they're going to Wade Hampton, they're saying, please help us. They're going to kill us. They're going to take everything we have. It's going to be destroyed. Well, Hampton, he took command and he quickly assembled soldiers and militiamen. and some of those militiamen were also African American. And they attacked the slaves just outside New Orleans. The well-armed, they had much better, weapons than the slaves did. They drove out they slaughtered a ton of them. A bunch of them were killed, and they drove out any survivors into the swamps, where they found 66 bodies of slaves along the road and in the swamps. It was pretty intense. They had slave hunters went out and they captured every slave who had escaped. 16 were executed by a firing squad. So this rebellion was squashed, and it was kind of over and above done, to use it as more of like an example. So even though they could have just not have gone so intensely after the slave rebellion, they did to prove an example to these, to the other slaves maybe who had thought about forming a rebellion. Okay, so by doing this, Wade Hampton and the Americans and Claiborne, they really proved that they could protect the people of Louisiana, and they finally earned the respect of the Creoles. Because you guys remember when these Americans rolled up, the people were saying, no, I'm French, or no, I'm this, or I'm that, or I'm Isleños, and I'm Cajun, I'm Spanish. They didn't really accept it. When this happened, they said, hey, maybe it's not so bad to be an American after all. Okay, so statehood. Actually, we're going to cover statehood and the War of 1812, the beginning of it, in class next week. So if you guys have any other questions, let's see. Yeah, I'm probably going to cover that in class, the statehood. And I think I'm going to do that in class. Yeah, because then we're going to go to early antebellum. All right, that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this rendition of the Miss Myers Show. I will see you in class. Have a fabulous week. Enjoy your spring break. And see you later. Bye. Vivian, what's the code word?
Mickey.
Mickey? You already did that one. Pick a different one. What's another code word?
M&M's.
M&M's?
Yeah.
M&M's. So the code word is M&M's.
Okay.
Okay. Say bye.
Bye.